Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of dDTalks. It's another Sunday on Censored Sundays. Invite your friends. Tag your loved ones. Let them know we're live. Tag, share, and invite. It's dDTalks. TZ Panchak in the house playing. Share, tag, and invite, guys. Should be a good conversation. All right, guys. We're talking issues, acceptance in cross-cultural relationships. That's right. Share, tag, and invite, y'all. Hey guys, this is Diane. Our topic today is going to be issues and acceptance in your cross-cultural relationships. Do you know anybody in a cross-cultural relationship? Multicultural, intertribal, cross-country, cross-national, biracial? We need them live. That's who we're talking about today. All right, so let's get going. Hi, Nestor. I see you. Welcome. On Censored Sundays, y'all, so you know I'm going to be spilling the beans. I spare nothing on Sundays, okay? That's what we're talking about. So, guys, listen. You travel far. You're in another land. Maybe not even far. You're in your local area. You run into this dude or this chick. You guys, there's a flame. There's a connection that hits you. And then all of a sudden, you realize you're not from the same tribe, you're not from the same country, you're not from the same nationality. Then what comes to mind? You start thinking about what's mom going to say, what's dad going to say. The cross-cultural issues and barriers begin to come to mind. And then maybe for some people, it actually affects that relationship. Maybe you can't take it any further. It has to stop. It cannot progress. Or for some people, you decide to, throw the wing. You decide to say, you know what, to heck with it. You delve in, you fall in love, you're crazy in love, and then you say, I'm going to deal with my family later. And then you get into the family, and now it becomes an issue. Your family either chooses to accept them or they choose to reject them. For some people, that means that's the end of the road. For others, they choose to ignore the family, ignore the signs, or decide that their love is greater than the family issues. The question though is, what are the issues that arises at that point? Do you think you can survive it? Do you think you can survive your cultural differences, the barriers, the obstacles, the cultural diversities that you face? Two different upbringings, two diverse cultures, two different backgrounds, upbringings, what have you. In some cases, although you're different, you're actually more alike than you think. What do you think are some of the issues that you will face? That's what we're really talking about. So if you know anybody who's going through that, signal them, let them know we are live. I want to hear your comments. I want to hear your feedback. Okay, that's what we're talking about. So I'll let you share, tag, and invite for a few minutes, and then we're going to talk about that. So in the meantime, I'll give you a short break and I'll be right back. back again. So what we're talking about, issues in your multicultural, cross-cultural, diverse relationships. Okay. So what I was talking about is people who are in all these diverse relationships. Are you encountering any issues, or was it a smooth transition for you? There are many people who have found love in different cultures, in different tribes, in different nationalities, in different races, and they're actually really happy until the glitch occurs. So my thing is, what are some of those issues? Some of those issues are the things that we're going to try to tackle today. Those issues are real, and they're costing marriages, they're costing your relationships, they're costing family crises, and so many different things. Can we overcome those issues though? Just because does love surpass all those issues, or are some of the issues more trivial than we would like to think? So I want to hear your feedback. I want to hear your comments and stuff. So I'll take you back to a Bible story, as you begin to think about your thoughts. So in the scriptures, which I like to share scriptures sometimes, as you all know, but remember, you don't have to buy my version because you're free to choose what you believe in. But in the scriptures that I like to read a lot of times, there's a story in there, and there's a story about this lady and her husband, Elimelech, right? Anyway, Naomi and her husband, right? They marry, they move to another city. They have two sons. And when they move to this new city, it's called Moab, their two sons, marry women from that tribe. So this is two men from two different cultures who married women from the place that they immigrated to. So they immigrated. And of course, they found love in the new cities. So one of the sons married Ruth, a lady called Ruth, and the other married a lady called Oprah. Later on in life, as the story evolves, we hear that Naomi loses her husband. And later on, through famine and stuff, she loses her two sons. So basically, this is a mother-in-law who loses her spouse, her two sons, and now she's left with her two daughter-in-laws. Naomi, in the midst of the things, decides that, you know what? Because of this situation, this crisis, I have nothing else. I'm going to go back to my family. I'm going to return to my family, to the land where I came from. And the daughter-in-law say, you know what? I'm going to follow. We're going to follow you. But Naomi insists that no, you can't. So Oprah decides to go back to her own family. But Ruth says, no, I don't have a spouse either. I also lost my own husband. You are the only person I have. Wherever you go, I'm going to go with you. Now, in this case, this is a mother-in-law who accepted her two daughter-in-laws. They were from two different tribes. She accepted them wholeheartedly. One decides to stick with her, the other decides to return. And I mean, she's right to return because, I mean, she doesn't have a son anymore, her husband anymore. So she says, I'm going to start a new life. But the other says, you know what, I will die hard with you. I'm going to ride the waves with you. And she sticks to it and follows her mother-in-law. They go back, and eventually, if we follow the story, the big story of Ruth finds her Boaz. So they go and they find a job in the farmland, and it becomes the farm to this rich guy. He takes an interest in Ruth, and the mother-in-law preps Ruth for this man. She preps him and says, you know what, when you go there, this is how you serve him, this is what you do. So she teaches her daughter-in-law the secrets. And who knows that because she takes Ruth as her own, she cautions her and then helps her to find a new spouse. And because Ruth takes her like a mother, guess what? She also benefits. So when there's acceptance, everybody stands to gain versus people standing to lose. The moral of the story is that these things are not new. That people marrying from different tribes or different cultures are not new. So chances are, if you immigrate to another land, you're probably going to find someone from that land. So why is it so strange and foreign that our parents expect us to find people from your tribe, perhaps in some cases, or from your country when you are in a foreign land? Why are those restrictions there? Is it because they believe in the familiarity of what they know best? Or what is it that makes us more comfortable with just what we know? What is it that makes us uncomfortable with the outsider? And some of the issues I want to talk about. So in this case, Naomi and Ruth, her daughter-in-law, become, like one, and they have a good marriage. So now let's go back into real world now that I've taken you to this story. This story is an abstract. Hey, Joanne, I see you. You said this is your first time. Thank you for joining. Share, girl. Make sure you share. Right, I'm glad to have you here. Nestor, I hope you're still on. Thanks for joining, guys. Hey, remember if you're live, share, tag, and invite your friends. Let them know we're live. I know I came on late today, but that's okay. I had stuff going on. Okay, guys. But hey, we're talking an interesting topic here, and I hope that you will share your feedback. There are a lot of you who are probably dating people outside of your cultures. Maybe you're trying something new. Maybe the dating scene is unfriendly and you can't find someone from your country, you can't find someone from your tribe, you can't find someone from your alumni school that you probably went to, and now you're going outside the box, you're thinking outside the box. But then the problem that you have to deal with is that you have to come back and have your family or your friends approve of this person that you're dating. Now, does their approval really matter? For some people, it doesn't matter. They don't really care if the family approves or not. In some cases, it actually matters. It determines if their relationship will survive or not survive, right? So we're going to talk about some of the few points. What are some of the issues that people encounter or face in these complicated situations, right? So sometimes I was sharing a discussion with a friend who is apparently in the same kind of dynamics, married to another culture, right? Another culture, and not just one friend, a couple of friends. One is two different nationalities, and in another case is two people from the same country but from two different tribes. So I try to pick the brains of two different scenarios just to see what they had to say. In one of the cases, they explained that actually, when you're married to someone from another culture, you really can never truly know them per se. In other words, you only know as much as they tell you. So if they're not too open, guess what? That's all you know. I mean, you can get to know their culture, you can learn their food, you can learn enough. You can go live there in some cases, and you will feel really comfortable. In other cases, you will never really feel accepted no matter how much you learn of that culture, right? So it's kind of dicey. So the dynamics is never really between just the two individuals, because you can do everything to help each other feel comfortable in your circles, your differences, right? But in other cases, no matter how much you try, because you spend all your time trying to justify or trying to validate your partner in your other environment, because every time you find yourself in new circles, new friends, new colleagues, you're always trying to make the other person feel accepted, because automatically you think they're being judged for being different. You think they're being judged for just not being from where you come from. So you always have the obligation of explaining yourself. But why do you feel the need to explain your decision? Why do you need why do you feel the pressure to explain why you are with this person, or perhaps explain yourself or validate, make them feel that comfortable? Is it because they really don't feel comfortable, or perhaps you are the one feeling uncomfortable about this difference? What is it that makes us get to that place, right? So I'm watching out for your comments. Thanks, so welcome. I'm waiting for my Boaz or the Isaac to send me Rebecca as well. Hey, Joanne, keep you know what the principle is, right? Before Joaz found Ruth was actually working. So if you're doing the right thing, if you're in the field, if you're working your cornfields, you're staying hard, you're staying productive, and you're just, and you're praying, of course, then, Boaz will obviously locate you, right? So it's not a thing where you just idle and Boaz locates you. You can't be idle. They found them in the cornfields working. So whatever you do, if you're in your craft, you're in your lane, chances are your Boaz will locate you when you're doing your stuff, when you're actually in your element. And so my own point of view is that actually it will not be easy for two different people from two different backgrounds or culture to come together. We all know that difficult moment will come, but truly, if they love each other, they should not give a damn what family members or friends are telling them, because they are not going to live with their families or friends. Nestor, while I would like to, I mean, you have a very valid point that as two adults actually make a decision. They say, you know what? There comes a point where, as an adult, you really have to take a stance, where you have to say, you know what? This is what I want. I know what I fell in love with. I know what my needs are, and I found them in that person. So you can take that decision and say, you know what, I'm gonna take that stand and be with that person. But in some cases, it's really not that easy to walk away from your family. Now, if you're really close to your family, and they're going to be, matter of fact, marriage is the bringing of two families together, right? So when you guys cut off away from one family, then you lose that support system. Or the other person feels cheated because now they have to cut off, or they can't enjoy the benefits that your family brings to the relationship. I think that the more you get accepted, the more both parties receive acceptance from their families and their friends, I think they feel more comfortable moving forward and how they enjoy and embrace their relationship. When you have those obstacles, I think it creates crises and frictions. In the beginning, you can survive it, but now when you start having issues, especially let's say in some cases your marriage could be faced with a crisis. Let's say health issues, or you could have challenges with children. Some people have kids who have who have health issues and stuff like that. Then those things become a real issue. Now the family keeps blaming that particular in-law, the in-law that was rejected from the get-go. They face a lot of obstacles. Or in some marriages, people go in actually where they didn't have that support to begin with, and they could get into the marriage and have, let's say, childbirth issues. They have issues bringing to procreating life. And in those cases, you know how most families are. First of all, people believe that in marriage, children are a byproduct of it. It's automatic, right? But we all know that in some cases, it is not always a given. People have those kinds of challenges. So if you're already in a marriage that has those kind of issues, where your families did not approve of it, then I mean you're under so much duress from that level of pressure. So let me see what oh, there are two more comments here. Carmen, you say when you love someone, it does not matter where they come from or what cultural differences you may have. It's all about the willingness to respect each other, find common ground and common values, and commit to the relationship. Carmen, that's a very good point. I believe you're speaking also from experience. You're right. I think love should surpass a lot of this, a lot of these things, right? Love should be the greatest should be the greatest pinnacle of your relationship, right? Love is what the ingredient that should keep you guys going. But I believe that in marriage or long-term relationship, anyway, when you meet someone, let's start with just dating. When you meet someone and you're just dating, perhaps you're not thinking long-term goals, you're not thinking where this is going. But once your relationship hits that turning point where you're now considering forever, then you cannot ignore some of these things. I know you say love is great. Yes, love is great for the two of you. But long term, you would realize that family would play a part, will have to play a part in your relationship. At some point, you cannot keep ignoring it. Right? So, yes, love will take you far, but I think that the more you can bring people in to embrace your diversity, the better it is for you guys long term. So, Carmen, you have a good point that I agree with. Mocha says what is Mocha saying? What is strange about relationship is that opposites attract. So a different culture is exotic. I like that. Once joined at the hip, exotic becomes different. You don't understand me, and understanding is the fuel for a relationship. The negotiation within the confined cultures begins and lasts for a long time. First of all, Mocha, you have a very good point here. You say foreign is attractive, right? I mean, when two people come from diversity. First of all, initially, what attracts you guys is your diversities, is the fact that you're different from what I know. I'm looking for something new. I want to explore life. I just want to embrace new things. So you get it really truly excited about the new person, someone different. Especially if you've been in your own circle. Let's say you've been amongst your own culture. You're tired. You're bored by them. At that point, you think there's nothing that I can really learn from this anymore. I've hit a point where there's nothing new that I can learn from my own culture. Now you want something different, and so anything that's different is exciting to you at that point. But then of course, familiarity is not as exciting. Obviously, because it's too familiar. You know just about everything. You know what to expect and what not to expect. But with a different culture, with a different race, for that matter, there are so many new things that you can look forward to. The truth is, now when you do forever, and then you start realizing that, you know what, I have to wake up to new kinds of meals, or I have to wake up to new kinds of cultures. You always have to explain. Let's say you're from Nigeria. I know what I hear about Nigerians is that, let's say Nigeria, it is difficult for, let's say, an Igbo person to be accepted in a Yoruba culture than it is for them to accept a foreigner, a complete different nationality. So amongst in that country, even between the two tribes, they have their own complexities. I mean, you would find that in so many different countries, intertribal marriages are more complicated than foreign marriages, like two nationalities, cross-national marriages. I don't know why, but people tend to find it easier to embrace them. They feel like you are too far enough, so I might as well just accept that you're really different. I don't have to explain stuff. But when you're marrying two people from two different tribes in the same country, there's certain things that you don't have a pass. But in reality, your cultures are different. You don't really know how they prepare their meals. You don't really know what they eat. You don't really know if they have ways that they greet elders. You don't know a lot of things, but they don't give you that pass because they feel like you are from that country, right? So there's so many things that you can embrace, or in the beginning, like I said, it's fun, it's exotic. I think Walker coined it well, but the reality is that over long term, those things begin to creep up. Like there's the nostalgia sometimes, the nostalgia of home, and if the person you're with is not willing to adapt quick or rapidly, or just is resistant to the new things that your own culture brings, it could create friction over time. Some people do not want to embrace those differences or those new cultures over time, or they're resistant. In the beginning, they may act like they're okay with it, but over time, you start finding that they're complicated, they're resisting your culture, they don't want to embrace your culture. Or let's say you're married from somebody from two different nationalities, two different cultures. When it comes when as you're aging in life, right? In the beginning, people don't want to talk long term. So you talk immediate long term, immediate short term goals. Like this is what this is what we want. This is what our careers are about. This is what we want to do. But now you don't even go as far as talking about what are we going to do with the kids. Like when we have kids, what kind of education do we want? How do we want to what level of exposure do we want to give them? Do we want to expose them to both cultures? And the other person may feel that your culture is inferior to theirs, and they may think that they don't want to expose their children to your culture, yet that's where you came from. And so some people may feel truly insulted if the other person feels that your children should not be exposed to your culture because your culture is so inferior, but that's where you hailed from. So sometimes those things really truly create a barrier and a friction. Joan, you says what does Joan says? So okay, love. Felix says love conquers all. I do agree that love conquers all. It does. It truly does. That if both of you really were to rise above it, truly you will conquer it all. It doesn't mean you are not overlooking the issues. It just simply means that you decide to put a blind eye. You say, you know what, our love surpasses these differences. We're just not going to we're just not going to focus on it. We're just going to concentrate on the fact that we believe in one another. We have more things alike than we have differences. And the truth is, a lot of times, if you just go look past the nationalities, I've been with friends where they were from completely different nationalities, and when we talked about our upbringings, I found out that we were so alike. Like they went to similar schools, they were just in different countries. Okay, we probably had same kind of games that we played. We were exposed to same kind of music, same kind of just lifestyle. Okay, so and then at that point you're asking yourself, but if the two of us were to say we want to blend our lives, it would probably create a problem for either their family or mine. They would only focus on the differences, like how different you are. It used to be a time where parents were focused on maybe the roads are not good to go to that village or to go to that country. It just seems so far. But we're living in a world where everything is so myopic, it's so condensed. We're like in this small world. I mean, like now, there's really no excuse anymore. You can just fly. It's a day of travel to get to anywhere nowadays. No more than 24 hours, and you are in any part of the world. So cross-cultural differences and distance is really not an excuse anymore, right? But it's still an excuse that a lot of parents give, or a lot of families give, because they're not comfortable. And sometimes it's really is them that is the problem. They've not dealt with the fact that they cannot embrace diversity. They have not dealt with those things. But maybe there's something about the wise. As you grow older, there's a lesson to be learned, right, from those who are older. They've lived long enough to understand that there are indeed challenges that comes with cross-cultural or cross-tribal interracial marriages. There are indeed some differences. Do you want to ignore them? Yeah, some parents are more open, some are not. Some families are. Sometimes it's not even the parents. Sometimes it's even like the in-laws, like the sister-in-laws, the brother-in-laws, that cause more of a challenge to those relationships than the people themselves. Let me see what John says. This talk is for me because I prefer something different and new. I get easily bored by familiarity. I need something new in my life. Oh, my foreign husband to be is out there now. John, you're interesting. I mean, if you want something new, you can always find something new everywhere. Are you ready to also embrace? Are they ready for you? Have you prepared yourself in a manner that they are ready to receive you? Because you see, while you're ready to explore, you have to also be ready to be willing to share your life. Because when you embrace a new culture, you have to understand that you become like a teacher, because you're actually educating them on every single thing about you. So whereas when you're dating someone that you share a more common background with, there's some things that are already understood. You don't really have to. It's like between the lines. You don't have to read between the lines, because you understand certain things that are, they're spoken and unspoken. But when you're dealing with a new culture, not only do you have to learn those cultural nuances, but you have to actually translate a lot of things to them. This basic phrase, this is what it actually means. This salutation means this. So you have to be a good teacher to explain them, so that they can get to understand not only you but your culture, because we are truly a part of our culture. If you grew up in a particular thing, that's a composition of who you are as an individual as well. So you cannot separate the two, really. People would like to uh, say, they've become this new person because you now perhaps live in another country, or you've been there long enough, you've adapted to new things. But believe me, there's some things about your origin, some things about how you grew up, that follow you, that stick to your identity. So you really don't want to lose that anyway. And as you bring new life, you want to pass on those things anyway. For some people, they want to cut off from their heritage. They don't feel that what they bring as far as their cultural diversity is actually an important contribution to the growth of the next generation. If you don't have this kind of issues, then hey, good for you. But for some people who want to share their heritage with the next generation, that is the kids that they bring to life, then those things will be critical to them. It will be important that your partner is also willing to make sure that your children embrace that cultural diversity, right? That embrace those different cultures. Love is an experience. There is nothing to conquer. um, if love is an act, they may conquer. You're right, if it's an act. But who are the people acting? Are they willing participants in acting into that experience? If you love someone, you will find a way to understand them and embrace their culture. Felix, I do agree that I do agree, because why would you be wanting to do forever with this person if you're not willing to learn? But do you know that there's some people who refuse to truly learn? Or for some people in the beginning, maybe their culture is not that important to them. So sometimes they don't even allow the other person to get to know so much about them. And so for that phase, and it depends, especially if people who meet at a younger stage in their lives, their cultural identities are not big at that point. They're just more focused on, I'm in love, I'm excited, I'm this. Life is just a little bit superficial, right? But then as you start, being a parent yourself, as you start moving, living and doing life together, you start realizing that, what, it's important to actually have some of this historical background. It's important to know some of these things. You start realizing that you really cannot truly cut off from those things. And now, because you didn't talk about those things, the other person, you don't know where they stand as far as that topic is concerned, or as far as those values are concerned, right? So now both of you are completely aloof, right? To it becomes a friction, a point of contention in your relationship, right? So I have Mocha Rasmussen's patient, kind, etc. doesn't represent the throbbing pulse of affection that comes makes us jump for the other. Okay, and then Mocha also has another comment. Let me read that. Mocha says, "Love is a data bundle of good, amazing, scintillating, irresistible memories. When the memories sour, love dies." True, I have to agree. As long as the memories are rosy, all feels cozy in the other culture is now a more intricate bundle and can eclipse the memories very quickly. Hmm. That is a very loaded comment right there, right? So basically, if I understand the if I understand the comment correctly, you're saying love is a vital ingredient as well, right? Love is a vital ingredient. If you keep it spicy, if you keep it glowing, if you keep all the energy, I mean, just keep the relationship energized, then those differences are not really don't really come to light. But once those things fade out, right, your differences, I highlighted, your differences come to light, and then it becomes a problem because now it's easy to pinpoint. Every time you have a crisis, it's easy to say, this is why we're having this problem, because you're completely different from me. We're having this crisis because you don't really understand me. We're having this problem because you choose to ignore my background and stuff like that. So those things really, in the beginning, when all is good, the flowers, the petals, the vacations, the honeymoon, the good dates, and all of that is in the picture, nobody's talking differences, honestly. But when the heat has settled down and now you're living on your day-to-day routines, mundane, you have to go to work, you have to come back, you have to cook, you have to clean, all those things, the reality sets in. Now you start seeing those differences really. This is how in my culture, I'm not expected to do this. The other person says, well, my culture is this. Who decides to submit to the other person's culture? Whoever thinks that maybe their culture is more superior sometimes. And whereas in reality, it really doesn't really matter, because two people from the same culture anyway still have this, still one person who has to submit to the other, rule of nature, right? In some areas, something's got to give. But now when you have those cultural differences, 9 out of 10 times, people will identify that the problem originates from our differences. Whereas the problem could be really more superficial than that, right? It may be nothing to over focus on. So really, but one of the things that I also wanted to highlight about the differences in these relationships is that in the course of time, as people age in their cross-cultural relationships, we are not addressing long-term like life goals. Like when the clock times out on you and I in that relationship, when the end comes, or when retirement happens, where do we go? Do we go to your country or do we go to my country? Do we go to China or do we stay in America? Or let's say you have careers that require like perhaps exploring, traveling the world and doing things. Is the family willing to relocate with these new careers? There are people who work international jobs. There are people who work with international organizations, Peace Corps and all of that, diplomats. Are you willing to travel? Is the family willing to relocate for those things? So those are decisions that a lot of times we don't want to address, but they're things that we should talk about. I'm saying anytime that you find yourself where you're going to make a decision that requires two people from two different cultures, where it's not so evident that when we retire we are building a home in the village, and it wouldn't be a problem of is your village or my village because we come from the same village. But now when you have two different villages, which village is the house going to be in? Now, naturally, if you are, let's say, from African descent, chances are it's going to be in the man's village, right? Because, although biblically says the man will leave his family and cleave unto his wife, right? But culturally, it's the man marries the woman and she leaves the family and go lives with the man, right? So wherever it is, the man marries the woman and you become like part of him. So you follow him and his dreams and his visions. So if he says we're retiring to Chad, then are you willing to move to Chad? So if you don't see yourself 50 years down there, at 50, at 60, living in Chad, then those are the things that you need to consider in the beginning. And perhaps maybe early on in the relationship, it may not really be something that you want to think of, or as you mature in your love, you could look at that a little bit differently. But I think that these are conversations that we really cannot ignore. Like, where do we retire to? And sometimes you could actually believe that you're going to retire where you are, where you both met. But as you grow older, your differences may change. Like someone was just sharing that, if you are, let's say, in Africa, you're not thinking 401k, and I believe that is the same for people in other countries. Retirement plans are completely different. But here in America, you have to probably think about possibly retirement homes. What if you retire and you're sick? You're a patient. Are they going to house you, Or are you going to be in a nursing home? Are you going to be in a group home? If you only have one child, are you going to be a liability to that child? What are the provisions that you're making? Are you really having those honest conversations with yourselves? Those are things that we really should not ignore. But a lot of times we don't want to address them because we want to put a blind eye to it, we want to pretend, but then it becomes a real issue. Or someone decides that they want to retire sooner, that all of a sudden you just got married, you're 2 years 3 years down the marriage, and the other person says, hey, I'm moving back to my country. And now you're like, okay, hey, we just got married, I thought we were going to do life here before you move. And then now that becomes like a major problem. So this is what some of the issues that cross-cultural marriages or cross-cultural relationships bring. But when there's acceptance on both sides of the family, a lot of times, sometimes family may have a say. They could come in and try to influence, sway one party over the other, and you guys can make better decisions, right, as to which direction we're going to take that relationship to. And then again, in the case of dying, when you die, who gets buried where? That's one topic that we really completely choose to not address because we are a people that do not really believe in talking about death. But since death is inevitable, we are all living and we are all going to go someday. I think that once you become an entity, once you become one, a union, I think that you should, at some point in your relationship, you should have those honest discussions. Because while your spouse may love you crazily, they may not be looking to go be buried in your country and perhaps in a land where maybe they barely visited. Maybe they only visited like once. So they really, to them, they love you, the individual, but maybe they haven't fallen in love with your land. And then in other cases, you both could be in a foreign land, and maybe her family or his family prefers that they be buried somewhere else. I think that when you have as a couple, when there are kids involved, I think the both parties should consider being buried where the kids are going to be raised. I think that's most logical. If you're passing away, you pass away now, and your kids are probably going to be raised in one country, then maybe you should consider being buried where the kids, where the other spouse is most likely going to live, so that they have access to, your grave. They can come pay their tributes more often. If you didn't take them to your homeland while you were alive, why do you expect that they're going to move to your country now when you're dead? So it's your obligation that while you're alive, you create that bond for them, you build that rapport for them, so that they can make it home and they can feel some connection and some ties to that land. Okay. And then Muka says the perception of love is different. Let me see first. So the perception of love is different from the reality of love. Perception of love suggests unity. We are one. Reality is love is between two very different entities. Culture defines the distinctiveness of the entities, so it's very natural to have tension when the lovers come from a different cultural upbringing or social landscape. I think that's really the concluding point of this discussion. I think you kind of summed it up. Mocha, that's a very good point. You summed it up really beautifully by saying that, yes, indeed, you cannot separate men, women from their cultural identities, really. We are a sum total of all these things: your upbringing, your environment, your educational system, the friends you make. All these things amount to who you really are today. There comes a point where sometimes we want to separate, want to cut off certain things because you're pursuing a dream or you're pursuing a goal. But if you have to be true and authentic to yourself, you have to be genuine. And if you're going to do life, you really want to be authentic. You really want to go back to who you truly are and what you relate to. So if you're going to be all those things, then you have to embed them and embrace that true identity and present the real you to your partner, so that you can all make good and informed decisions as you move forward with your life. So I know that dating cross-cultural, inter-tribal relationship, cross nationalities, biracial relationships are inevitable in today's world. I mean, you live and grow and work with people from different cultures. So doesn't it just make sense that when it comes to those decisions, or dating, those are the people that you interact with on a day-to-day basis, that's who you're going to meet anyway. So if you're going to do those things, I'm just saying that be mindful that some issues are inevitable, but they can be mitigated if you just talk about them ahead of time, if you just address them early on. Don't pretend that they don't exist. My preference would be talk about it, and at least you know where each other stands as far as those issues are concerned. Guys, I think we've been talking for a good minute now. I'm not going to be too lengthy. It's Sunday. I know most of you are getting ready for your Monday activities, right? I'm just going to wait on for a couple of minutes. If you have any questions, any issues that you want to tackle, I'll be more than happy to take any questions, any comments that you have. Otherwise, I will soon be concluding the discussions. Just understand that, to sustain your relationships that are cross-cultural, diverse relationships, you want to maintain trust. Trust is a big factor because guess what? You have a lot of things about each other that you don't really know. So your obligation is to fill each other up with what your stories are, what your history, bring them up to par with as far as who you were until the point where they met you, and then they can continue from there, right? So build good trust, right, about who you are. Mutual respect is vital, is key. It's a key component to your relationships. Spend a lot of good time with one another. Share your cultures, introduce each other to each other's cultures. Don't be shy about your culture, because whether you're shy or not about it, it's going to creep up eventually. You can't run away from it. Even if you don't talk about it, maybe the kids that you're going to have will have to bring it up, or your in-laws, you may have issues that will require you to explain your culture. So from the get-go, be transparent about it, because those things are not good. You can't hide away from them for too long, okay? And then, of course, you understand that you have boundaries. Whatever boundaries your cultures has, you want to expose them to those things so they know not to cross certain lines. And you always want to put them in a position where they're really comfortable. They are not at loggerheads with people. Warn them ahead of time that this is the uncle or this is the auntie that you should be mindful of, or this is the relative that is extreme and stuff, so that they can walk the fine lines. I mean, if you love someone, that's what you would do, right? You will guide them, you will hold their hands and make sure that the transition into your families, into your circle of friends, is actually well introduced. The honor is really on you. How you introduce your partner to your family and friends will actually determine how they are embraced. So if you want them to be welcome, give a good introduction, okay? And always show that respect for them in front of those people. I know you may have your differences, but never expose those people who are already iffy about your relationship. Don't expose them to those problems, because they're just going to highlight them for you, just accentuate them unnecessarily. They'll always, exaggerate the issue, and you don't really want that. Until you're both comfortable, then you can begin to share those things. Until then, just be a solid duo, okay? And just do both of you together, because there's trust, yes, sacrifice. As a must, you must let go of a lot to make cross-cultural relationships work. Sacrifice, my God, sacrifice. Why didn't I even think about that? Sacrifice is major because you realize that you have to let go sometimes of so many different things, so many things that sometimes your partner doesn't really understand or comprehend. You may have to let go. It may be things that were precious to you, but now you're dealing with someone who doesn't really understand that those things are precious. But maybe over time they would understand why it was that important to you, but you're going to have to give up some things, and take on a lot of things. So it's sacrifice, it's patience. But again, if you have that love, that real good ingredient, that chemistry, communication, if you have all those things down packed, you can survive all those things. The sacrifice won't really feel like sacrifice, because you'll be doing it for someone that you love anyway. All right. So, I mean, I think it was a good discussion. I like the contributions. I like everything that you guys shared, and keep the discussion going. Love the show. Please share with every friend. Thank you so much, Mocha. Hey, guys, if you're watching, listen, if you're watching, this conversation can help somebody. Somebody needed to hear this message. Maybe it wasn't for you, but it's probably for a friend. You may know a brother or sister who's going through this kind of crisis. Just let them know. And to the parents and family members, if you have been a difficult in-law, if you have been just a truly resistant in-law, or friend, or someone just completely making life a living hell for somebody's child, just because they come from a different tribe, or just because they come from a different nationality, or just because they're a different race, I think you need to rethink your life. Quite frankly, I think you need to rethink your priorities. There's something to be said about you for being so how can I say, mistrusting. Why don't you trust them? Why can't you just open your world and universe? You'll be surprised that you may stand to gain more from these people if you just really truly opened up your mind to them. So right, don't be don't put up your guard so much that you choose to live life without really understanding who these individuals are. If your child, your daughter chooses to love someone from a different culture, they choose to love someone from a different tribe, then there's a reason why they love them. They're a part of you, right? They're your seed. So really try to understand, go through them and try to understand why they fell in love with this person instead of just blocking them away from your world. If it's your child and you really love your child, you're going to love who your child chooses to love. Granted that sometimes they may fall in love with someone that is completely out of the horizon for them. And I know that as parents, as family, we're naturally protective of our own. But if you've seen that this person is truly happy, you can see the joy in them, and you see that they're helping each other grow, then just be happy for them. Remember that you have done your own life, you've made your own choices. Your child didn't have to choose you as their parent, they didn't have to choose you as their dad or their mom. So why are you making life complicated for them? Just allow their life is already hard as it is. And if someone finds love, and love is also very complicated to find anyway. So if someone actually goes out and can find love, true love, that is trusting, that is giving, that is caring, that is compassionate for them, all your responsibility is to be supportive of them. It's not to go out there and try to destroy it for them. So just learn to know where you stand as far as your role is in people's lives. If you're a parent, just be a parent and just be a good in-law. If you're a sibling, be a good sibling and be supportive, right? It's not your place to be deciding who and what they should be doing. But if they're going down the wrong pipe, of course, caution them. But if you cannot caution them, allow them to make their mistakes. Eventually, they're going to come out and come back out of it. But keep praying for them that their decisions are the right ones, and that if you're going to do it once and do it right. Okay. Hey guys, I love you, and I love you with the love of God. That's how I always like to sign off. I hope that you learned something from this conversation. And if you didn't learn, hey, maybe share the lessons that you have so that others can learn from it. Okay. So guys, remember to share, remember to like the page. I love you guys. I hope you have a fantastic week ahead. It's a wrap for me, and I'm going to toast to that. Hey guys, peace. I'm signing off. All right. And I'll close again with my boy Panchaco. Where's Panchaco? I was trying to leave you with Panchak as I wrap it up. So guys, I wait your comment. I'm still reading. Boca says 5 stars. Hola, thank you. That was a good one. I appreciate it. Blue Nation, y'all. It's Panchak is here. Have a wonderful week ahead, guys. Baby, I'm just like in your love. So easy anywhere you go. That's right. I can't explain this feeling. Baby, don't check a move. Cause this kind of dDTalks, y'all. Like the page. Follow. Share. She said I do like forever. C'est toi la femme de mon rêve. C'est toi la femme de mon rêve. Woo! TZ Panchak, y'all, follow her, like her. It's a brother. Tell me we can love you better, girl. Who can treat you better? No one. No. Ciao.